Okay, hey, welcome back to the Metrics metagame. It's been a long time since we've spoken to you guys. Wes is not here currently. He's actually out in Barcelona at Worlds right now, having the time of his life. And with me, I have joining me Austin, Arthur, and Adam in no particular order. Three friends of mine that I've been playing with for the last few weeks um, since I kind of got back into the flow of things. It's really conveniently located right next to my school. So I'm just like, all right, well, I'm here, so I'll play some Fab, pretty easy. Um, yeah, I mean, that's really kind of it as far as intro stuff. We haven't been recording for a while. Wes and I have been pretty busy with school, and, life gets in the way, but we're always going to kind of come back to what we love doing. So we're starting things back up. We've got some cool future plans that we're going to start kind of considering how we want to execute that. But, we have some stuff we're going to do. Not necessarily going to be going forward with more like weekly or bi-weekly videos. It's going to be more like every couple few to monthly videos. But we have some outside stuff we're going to work on. I'll leave it at that. We do have some plans. We got some more tokens in. So as far as Patreon stuff, that stuff's back up and running. We froze it during a hiatus just because we, didn't feel right taking money from people that, when we weren't making content. So the money that we did have went back into getting more tokens for people in the streamer size. So we're giving those out to people we match with. And the Patreon still applies to that. If you sign up for our Patreon, we will ship you a streamer sized metrics metagame token. And actually, I have a couple of those. Hang on. Let me get it out of the bag here, and I'll show it real quick, and then we can start getting into the interview because that's what the whole video is about. But I got to do a little bit of catch up here, and it'll be awkward for a sec. But so here's the token. Hopefully you can see it okay. It's much bigger than last time. Metrics metagame right there. So pretty nice tokens, and the guys here can account to that as well. They love them, according to what they say. So. All right, yeah. Let's just get back into the whole reason we're here. I'm joined by Austin, Arthur, and Adam. Three guys I've been playing with, really great guys, and they're actually part of a team, and that team is called Ancestral Alliance. They started, and I'm not going to steal their thunder here, so I'll just kind of start into this. First of all, tell me a little bit about yourselves, how you got into Flesh and Blood. Just give us some background on where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, so I've been playing Flesh and Blood since January of 2023. So not the longest, but it's coming up on, I guess, 11 months now. Um, man, what else do I say? I don't know. I'm not in school anymore. I graduated, so but in my mid 20s, um, been absolutely addicted to this game.
Awesome.
It's not my first trading card game, but it's definitely going to be my favorite and probably will always be my favorite. And I hope that never changes.
Awesome. Well, the Fab community is glad to have you. Let's see. I think that's it for that. So go ahead, Arthur, with your next one. I think that's a good enough answer right there. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been playing since December. A friend of mine, shout out to Paul, by the way, tried to get me into Magic the Gathering first, actually. And I was kind of tempted because I grew up playing some trading card games like elementary school. Never really got into it, just like kitchen table stuff, being 9 years old, so never did anything with that. So I was tempted to do some Magic, but I was like, the game has such a long history. It just feels so intimidating that it's like, forget it. I don't actually want to play this. And then Paul came back to me a few months later and was like, "Hey, so there's this new trading card game that's been out only for a few years and it's pretty cool. You should check it out." And checked it out, fell in love immediately with the mechanics, like just the idea you play as a particular hero, choosing your own equipment and cards and stuff. I just dove straight in and I've been absolutely obsessed with this game for full year. It's been so much fun. Haven't regretted it a bit.
Fantastic. It's good to hear. Yeah, it's awesome. Go ahead, Austin.
Um, I started I started in late Monarch. I played for a little bit over the summer during that. Did Tales pre-release, and I kind of fell off the game for about a year just because I was in school and still am in school at OSU. But so I kind of, just because scheduling wise, I fell off the game, and then when it got to that summer, I was like, all right, I want to get back into the game and get dedicated into and start playing. Um, and kind of the reason why I chose Flesh and Blood over any other card games is I have played Magic before. I played it a fair bit back in high school, but getting back into trading card game, I didn't like the idea of having to learn and a card pool of 30 years versus a card game that has only been out for a few years. So in my mind, it was easier for me to catch up and learn um, Flesh and Blood than Magic the Gathering. And so that's why I chose Flesh and Blood. Just smaller card pool, easier for me to get into, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and still
Awesome.
am.
Yeah, I mean, I think your experience is probably shared with a lot of people who've either come from other card games or are just interested in picking up a card game. You know, the intimidation factor of showing up to a room just absolutely full of people playing a card game that's been out for decades that has all these different mechanics. And I mean, even just leaving and kind of being away from Flesh and Blood for a few months and missing like I'd say 1.5 sets, I guess. Like it's, you know, it's overwhelming having to catch back up. So definitely can, you know, relate to those. Let's see. So favorite heroes, I guess that could have been part of the first part, but just run through them. I don't need to cue you guys. Just tell me your favorite heroes, why, what's your experience with them. I will give a little bit of intro information here that I could have probably said earlier too. These three are ProQuest top eighters for multiple ProQuests, and you guys can provide those numbers a little bit later if you want. That's fine. But Arthur's been on Azalea, Adam's been on Katsu or Katasu, as we'll see later, and then Austin's been on Dromai for these ProQuests. So that might relate to the favorite heroes. Who knows? We'll see. But go ahead and tell me your favorite heroes, why, and your experience playing them. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So my favorite hero has been Katsu. Pretty early on, like he wasn't the hero that I started with. But once I started playing him, it was the first one that really clicked with me, and it was the playstyle that I wanted to continue with. So when I started playing the game back in January, I was Dynasty was what was out, so I bought a lot of that. Started playing Arachne, which was interesting, but I just wanted to go wide. Like, why can't Arachne attack multiple times? And then they're like, oh, we'll try Ninja. I'm like, oh, okay. And I played 5 for a little bit. I'm like, that's cool, but like, I kind of want to think. No offense to 5 players, but it's a little. I guess it wasn't like as. I like the complexity. I guess I want to feel like I'm working on something or solving a puzzle with every hand I play, because I find that pretty engaging for myself. So Katsu kind of scratches that itch for me, where there's finding the line and figuring out how to play the hands in a way that will be, you know, confusing enough for the opponent, but still allow me to do the things that I want to do in that turn or that in that game total. I find that really engaging. So Katsu has been the hero that I've landed on. Which is kind of interesting too, because the reason that I like Flesh and Blood is just because of how interactive it is. But I actually play a hero like Katsu, or you know, a ninja hero that actually likes to play the game when no one's interacting with me, when they're not blocking, when I'm not blocking, they're not blocking. But like one of the things I really like about Flesh and Blood is just the back and forth of attack and block, and you know, even when it's not your turn, you're still very engaged in it. But yet I play a hero that really excels when your opponent decides I'm just not going to block, or that kind of like aggro mirror match where we're just slamming as many cards down at each other's faces as possible. Is my favorite way to play the game. Even though, yeah, a little bit counterintuitive, but yeah. So Katsu's been the one that I've landed on for sure, and I've been playing some Dash.io recently just to kind of understand the hero. A little bit of that same Katsu, like, oh, here's the line is you have to figure out what there's a puzzle every turn, you have to figure out how to solve it. Except with Dash.io, the puzzle is always changing, which is a whole another level of complexity that has been a little much for me. I haven't quite figured her out yet, but I've been playing her too much. But yeah, I think
Cool.
that's it.
Good to hear. Yeah, there's definitely a level of complexity with all the heroes, which is another like thing we love about Fab, right? There's a complexity level to each of them, and they each involve their own like practice and skill ceilings and everything. Yeah, go ahead, Arthur.
All right. Well, as no surprise to anyone who knows me, there's one hero in this game for me, and of course that's Azalea. That's all I've been playing since the beginning, really. I did technically start on Lexi. Like the first thing I did when I got into Fab was I went and got the Lexi Precon deck. And as I started learning a bit more about the game, just a few weeks in, I was thinking that like I can see a world in which I would spend $200 on a tunic. Like, sure, I can see myself getting into Fab enough to do that, but to do that and also spend 150 on a New Horizon, there's no way I'm ever going to spend that much money. Also, so I was like, okay, I have all this Ranger crap. Who else am I going to build who might be less expensive? And that's when I saw, back in those days, all the Azalea cult memes, right? Because Azalea was considered so bad, being the only hero with no LL points in CC. So I just thought that was so funny. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna bring her to like a random commoner armory just for fun, do it for the memes, right? And I show up with my janky commoner Azalea deck, and that was the first armory that I ever won, as a brand new player. So that was just so exciting to me that this is the hero that I did this with. And she turned out to be so incredibly fun. And I think she did have a much higher skill ceiling than maybe people might have credited her for. So I just absolutely fell in love. I've been playing her since I think I did pick her up in like end of January. So I did get a little bit of time with her before Outsiders dropped, and then she did absolutely become insane. So yeah, that's just all I've been playing. One of my favorite things, my favorite possessions is, of course, the playmat. Everyone's favorite playmat of everyone's favorite card. Oops, go this way.
The red in the ledger.
Oh,
No
yes.
one.
Yeah, so Adam loves it when his opponents don't block, so he can do his own thing. I love it when my opponents can do exactly one thing on their turn. That's the beautiful part of this game for me,
Or less, as I've experienced.
or less.
Yeah, I played a few games against the Azalea, and it's rough. It really is. Those hit triggers, they've changed over time to where they really matter now. It's not like just sleep dart anymore, like it was in the early days where Azalea had her own tier on her tier list. It's definitely changed. It's definitely scary. I would say Outriders might have been the big change with a couple of cards here and there since then, but it's definitely cool to see Azalea come around from having her own tier, and then now it's like, okay, well, I mean, for example, this weekend at Barcelona, you have representation. I think there was like 50 people playing Azalea or something like, and I want to say maybe that might have been partially to you because, or due partially to you, because you had Dice Commando talking about the John Guy Games ProQuests, and he's like, "Oh, Azalea, what a ProQuest," and like all this other stuff.
Yep, it's all thanks to me, guys, that there's azaleas flying around everywhere.
Yep. So every time you see one of those hit triggers coming across the table at you, you can thank Arthur. It's all his fault.
You're very welcome.
All right.
There was
Austin.
42 Azaleas at Worlds.
42. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, not quite 50, but that's still a lot. I mean, it used to be like
It is a lot.
Riptide. There was one. It used to be Azalea. All right. So what about you, Austin?
So my first hero, I for the longest time I thought was going to be Katsu. Just because I like the idea of like massive momentum and then be able to, Kotodachi, draw cards and stuff like that. So when I first got into the game, I bought a couple boxes of Vulcan Wraith, Arcane Rising, and Monarch. And then I think I ended up building a Bravo for a commoner event, and then I got absolutely blown out by a dash at the commoner. I was like, huh, okay. And then I went and bought a case of Arcane Rising, and in that case, I pulled a Tekla Foundry Heart. And so me looking at the decks and everything is like, actually, I only need like 3 more cards and I have a fully functioning dash list. And so my first hero that I played and I actually took to my first ProQuest season and Battle Hardened was Dash. And she is still by far probably my favorite hero. I just special place in my heart. And so when Bright Lights got announced, I was just ecstatic because more mech cards for Dash. But probably my second favorite hero, which is what I'm currently on right now, is Dromai. And I think the kind of the small comparison I can bring to the two decks is one of my favorite ways to play Dash was pistol package. And so being able to manage induction chambers and plasma purifiers and all these micro actions that I had to perform kind of reminded me of what I had to do for Dromai with Ash Wings and setting up dragons and keeping track of my Ash and burn them all counters. And so just having those micro actions to have to do, it's one of the reasons why I really enjoy playing Dromai. So those
Awesome.
would be my two favorite heroes.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool too because it occurred to me while you were saying that so Flesh and Blood typically, if you're just watching this and don't know, typically you start at your most powerful and then you work your way down to being less powerful. You know, your reds coming across have more, and you're pitching your blues, and then toward the end of the game, you're playing the blues that don't hit so hard. You don't have as much equipment, but it seems like you enjoy the ones that turn that around and say, "Oh, I'm going to actually smooth out my power level throughout the whole game by gaining power through cards I play that stay on the table." And then, you know, you're kind of not reversing it, but you're just smoothing out the curve of your power throughout the game. And yeah, there's a cool similarity there for sure. Having like a board state almost.
Yeah.
So it's nice. All right. So we kind of got the intros out of the way. We know where you guys are coming from, how you started, you know, heroes you're on and everything. But we're here to talk about ProQuest season, which has been absolutely crazy for all of you, because I know you guys have been to 2 per weekend for what, 2 or 3 weeks or something. You'll have to fill me in on that one. But the question, the prompt, the talking point, whatever we're going to talk here is like, what goes into preparing for winning a PQ or top 8ing a PQ and like progressing into that. And you know, if you guys want to answer individually, it's cool. If you guys want to kind of just chit chat, it's also cool. I just want to know what you guys like, where you're coming from on that, because me personally, I'm like a decent player. I can go and play some Talishar and like I can go and trade with some people, you know, a little bit. I haven't beaten you guys yet at all. Even when Arthur played an Icelander for the first time, I still lost. This is fine, you know. You got a mediocre player going up against ProQuest winners. This is just how it works. So, you know, I'm curious, but I'm sure there's other people out there that are curious too. Like, what is in the mind of someone who is competing at the ProQuest level, working their way to a PTI? And the other part was, you know, you guys fill me in on the details of the ProQuest season, because I was only there for one ProQuest and I've just kind of heard stories. So fill me in. And anybody
Well, yeah,
can
go. Let's start with how we prepare. We play a lot of games. The week before, we played, I think, we started on Monday and we played Monday, Tuesday. I think probably didn't play Wednesday, or we skipped Tuesday or Wednesday, one of those days.
We skipped Tuesday. I think we played like
Okay,
Monday,
yeah. So
Wednesday,
Monday,
Thursday, Friday.
yeah. Just every day jamming games, and you know, a little bit different style of game. Like where we would sit down, reveal our hands to each other sometimes, be like, hey, what really is the best line here, and get outside opinions on, like, you know, what would happen based on the game state that we're currently in. And like, yeah, you know, sometimes you're revealing information that would make you make different decisions, but just having like perfect knowledge of the game and, you know, talking out what would be the best decision in all these different scenarios that we worked ourselves into, is how we practice. And since we kind of played some rock paper scissor decks, so you know, I was playing Katsu, Austin was on Dramai, and Arthur was of course on Azalea. Azalea destroys Katsu's will to live, and Katsu does the same to Dramai, just getting free mask and momentum triggers. And then Dramai is a tough matchup for Azalea in general. Arthur's a little special, but you know, playing that nice round of rock paper scissors between our decks would give us, you know, some practice into some hard matchups, some practice into easier matchups, to just make sure we got our fundamentals down. And when ProQuest season came, we conquered. We got top 4. We had top 4 presence in every single CC ProQuest in Oregon. One of us was in the top 4, and we have 3 wins to our team's name. Unfortunately, not 1 win for each of us. We were so close to that.
We're very close.
Yeah.
But as a team, you guys have your PTIs, right? And that's what's important. Those of you who want to go, right? You're able to.
Well, we all want to go.
I mean, yeah. some people
And
just like don't expect to because they might have plans, but they want to win the ProQuest. So but that's good.
Definitely
so you
didn't
guys,
expect to.
fair.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are definitely like, I think comparatively speaking, new to the scene around here too, and semi
as
new to the Flesh and Blood scene a little bit.
Flesh and Blood, and also as a team, our team didn't. So how our team like kind of like semi formed was actually the Battle Hardened in Portland. When it got announced that it was going to be a team blitz event, I forget who it was. It was either like Arthur or Adam that just like instantly called out the other two, like, "Hey, we should form a team for this." And we're like,
Mhm.
"Okay, yeah, let's do that." And so kind of over the course, because I played Dash and Blitz and Arthur played Azalea and Blitz. So leading up to the event, we were like trying to figure out, okay, what decks are going to be good. We know kind of what the meta is going to be. So we also had to help Adam find a deck that he felt comfortable playing for it. And so kind of the start of our team started with the Battle Hard in Portland, actually, with the Team Blitz event. And so it was also cool during the event being able to like talk to your teammates and kind of with that same thing that we had been practicing before, like, hey, what's the best line for me to do here? And so for us, that was something that we had already kind of practiced, so it's helped us in the event. But that's kind of like the starting of how our team kind of formed.
Awesome. Yeah. Battle Hard in Portland. I was looking at it. I wasn't quite ready to pull my cards back out. I just moved across the country. Some of you guys might know I come from Tennessee. So, that was a long move and I couldn't manage playing a card game and also moving. And then I was trying to get set up for school here and it was a lot. So wasn't quite ready. But yeah, Battle Hard in Portland. I really wish I'd gone because I just keep hearing references back to it from you guys and it sounded like a blast. But yeah, you guys basically hit the ground running. You immediately were like, hey, we've got to attack the meta. How are we going to do it? So that seems like that's important. Getting your reps in, also really important. And I kind of like something Adam alluded to about the expectation. You weren't going expecting to win. You were just doing your best to achieve the best outcome that you could. And I think that's a really good mindset to have because you're focused on a goal, but you're not focused on, we have to win this. You're focused on, we love this card game. We want to do as great as we can. And I think that's kind of cool. So is there anything you wanted to add to this, Arthur? Because, you're a little quiet over there.
Yeah, I'd like to add in some more to the like progress story. And you mentioned like our expectations of us not necessarily expecting to win. Like on the drive to the first ProQuest, unfortunately Austin couldn't make it, so it was just me and Adam. So we didn't know exactly how competitive that event was going to be, like how many people were going to be there or anything. But we were just joking around in the car, like, hey, if the two of us were to get to the finals together, theoretically speaking, would we split? And if so, how would we split? So, we decided that Adam, if he were to get a PTI, he probably would go, whereas at the time I thought I wouldn't. And I just really wanted a shiny gold foil. So it's like, I get the gold foil, he gets the PTI. And again, this was all theoretical, if this were to happen. And we
It was
show up
very
and
much a joke. I
yeah.
brought it up and I'm like, I was just having a good time. I had no expectations whatsoever. And then, wow.
And then yeah, we kind of stomped it. We made it up to the finals. So we're like, wow, I can't believe we actually do get to do the thing we discussed in the car.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, in fact, we did that twice at the very next ProQuest at Gongai Games. The same thing. We
Yes.
made it to the finals again, and we just decided to split the other way. So,
Yep.
there was some talk you mentioned the Dice Commando video, some talk about, splitting, and that can be slightly controversial, especially since, like, on my side, I'm Azalea facing down a Katsu and I'm higher seed. So, like, free win for me, but we're on the same team. We're all on the same page. So we split one way on the first event. So of course I'm just gonna split the other way next event. Just no thought required there. And I will also say, like, since I've got my PTI, Adam's got his, and he was going like, sure, yeah, now I'm much more motivated to go to the Pro Tour next year.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad to hear from you too. And I'm glad that we got to hear, I like this thing happening right now with the team and the three heroes that you guys are mainly on right now because, and I just keep jumping back to this Azalea thing. Nobody who started the game when I started the game back in like Crucible Monarch time frame, nobody saw this coming. Nobody ever was like, oh yeah, Azalea, she's gonna be crazy. She's gonna win ProQuest. She's gonna break out as the dark horse of the format, and all of a sudden have her like day in the sunlight. And then Katsu's always been decent. I learned to play the game against Katsu. I think I told you guys that, but for anybody out there listening, you don't know, I learned to play against Katsu on the Via before Dusk Till Dawn. So I got, I know Katsu is a little scary, and you can, you were saying earlier, Adam, how Katsu you have more choices to make, and there's a little more of an exchange, a little bit more questions you're asking your opponent and stuff, which is cool. And I just like to see the 3 heroes. Like Dromai's doing fantastic. I love Dromai. I got my Marvel copies, just one. Okay, just one copy of each. They're getting signed in Barcelona. It's cool. Love Dromai. And then Azalea, I always wanted her to be good. Looks like she's there. And then Katsu's just always been good, and it seems like Katsu's bumped just a little bit to being more in the spotlight. I know Barcelona's meta, I think he was like third or fourth most
8, right?
represented.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made it to top 8, but there's also good representation at the start. So there's a decent conversion there too, which is great to see. Which is just indicative, I think, of a healthy game, a healthy meta game, and just things we like to see. So unless you guys have anything you want to add to that conversation, we can hold
I guess
on
I
there
got
for a
one
minute.
thing.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
has been really fun for I think all 3 of us, is that all the heroes that were on, we were playing kind of before they were considered good in the meta. Katsu's been kind of relevant, but not like really, really good. I started playing him before Outsiders, and then Outsiders came out, and then all of a sudden he got a lot better. Arthur being on Azalea way before Outsiders, doing well with Azalea way before Outsiders was the craziest thing to me. Austin playing Dromai and Dash, but a lot of Dromai before before the Tome of Imperial Flame. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. For the new Tome came out.
Yeah, Tome of Imperial Flame. I was also playing before Dynasty came out as well.
Yeah.
So
we got to just play decks. We got to play decks that we liked and we're just having fun with, and then all of a sudden they were good. And that was a great experience. Yeah. So we got to play our best decks, the ones that we were best on, and then they ended up being relevant in the meta, which gave us a good chance at winning, and it worked out.
Yeah. So. And since the whole topic of this is preparation for winning, we'll say an event, PQ in this case, but an event, the reps matter. They really matter. And you guys have shown me that, just like playing week in, week out, playing Azuri, definitely earning my stripes on Azuri right now. I don't think I've got a solid win, like a good back and forth win. So it's a long learning process, and you guys take heroes that you like and not like, oh, I'm gonna play this one because it's top of the meta or whatever. It just goes to show again that you put in the work and you reap the benefit from that. So since we're talking about heroes and lists and all this stuff, I actually have the list pulled up that you guys gave me from ProQuest, and maybe a couple of changes since then, but just kind of the list you guys want to talk about. Not necessarily what you guys will run for a future event or anything, just talking points, pretty close to the same, that kind of thing. Same idea. So like, you're not running Kitty Katsu, you're running a different Katsu, right? So we'll start with that. Adam, let's go through this list. I might have a couple of questions here. Excuse me. But go ahead and tell me about your list and direct me. I've got the thing pulled up, and I'll just kind of go to where you want to talk, and we'll go from there. I haven't done this before, and I don't think you guys have either. So we'll just, you know what I mean? We're just going to do what we do.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, man, where to start. Completely stolen list. I grabbed this. I started playing on this style list at the Battle Hardened, or at the PTI event at Battle Hardened Portland. The Katsu list that I was playing at RTN season was a bit different. I was running like the spinning wheel kick line, which I'm not running anymore, and I wasn't running Art of Wars. But this list started popping up in the Katsu Discord and started getting some like top 8 success at like some major events. So I switched over to this list at the PTI event Battle Hardened Portland, and played it for the first time at that battle hardened event and accidentally got top 4 at the PTI event. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that was like my first ever top 4, and that was the moment that I'm like, okay, I'm actually gonna like really try it this game, because that was a quite a thrill for me to like do well at a competitive event, and so that really inspired me to keep playing and to, you know, I guess try hard
Yeah.
a little bit more than how I was before. But yeah, so this list is essentially just Bond's line until you die. That's the main game plan here. You know, with the supplementary cards that are good, that, you know, enable the Bonds line to be consistent. But Bonds of Ancestry is just an amazing card. And basically, my goal every single game is to do a double Bonds line, and if I can do that, I will probably win. And that has been my experience. Is that, like, you know, I prioritize pulling off those double Bonds turns, and if I can get those off, then it's a done deal in the game. So this list, and you know, if you scroll down, you'll see that I have 5 copies of Bonds and 5 copies of Descending Gustwave total in the deck. That 47 is just the base, but actually you can click on the default matchup, or not the default, the generic matchup. If you scroll up, go to up at the little bit higher up, there's a little drop down above the name of the deck. Oh yeah, and Katasu, that was the joke, because I spelled Katsu's name wrong on my yeah, click
Katasu.
default matchup and then select all unnamed, everything not named. So you can just see like the generic build.
This is not something I've actually messed with very much.
So yeah, click that drop down and then everything not named, select that.
Oh, I see.
Right below
everything
your
I
line.
named. Literally
Yep.
the words that you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then go back to card view. We'll see
There we
the
go. Yeah,
the
here we go.
standard version of the deck.
Oh, cool. Got it.
It's what I run in most matchups. Even
bet.
matchups where I probably shouldn't run these cards, I run these cards anyways, just because I like it. So my play style for this has just been as aggro as possible. I don't really run D-Reacts unless I'm playing against Dory. And even then, I don't want to, but I put them in regrettably. I don't run D-Reacts against Azalea either, which is a hot take. But it makes sense to me because Azalea only needs to push 1 damage over to ruin your turn, so might as well not have them cluttering up your hand off of an Art of War. So I just don't put them in. And that has been the most successful for me, at least into Arthur's deck. So yeah, this is just full on Katsu aggro mode. And it's really fun. I've pulled off some crazy damage turns. Just the other night, actually, we switched decks and Austin was playing my Katsu deck. He got off a 42 damage turn, which was really fun to see because it was against me too. So I was just beaming with pride to see my deck do so well.
It was a lot of fun.
It's awesome.
But yeah, so just super aggro Katsu mode. Probably the only surprising thing people will see is that Chains of Emerence down at the bottom. That was my spice for the ProQuest season. Because the only matchup that I struggle with is Azalea. And this card can sometimes make the Azalea matchup better. It did not at any point in the ProQuest season, but in testing a couple of times it did. Because as Katsu into Azalea, there's 2 things that I'm afraid of. Tar Pit traps ruin my life, and Red in the Ledger, of course, the big thing that ruins my life as well. And I can just, at the start of my turn, I can play Chains of Emerence, name Tar Pit Trap, and then play a 4-card hand and be able to Katsu trigger without worrying. Which is something I've done a couple of times, but it didn't really pay off. And those times that I played it, but you know, it was just a nice, I guess, a little bit of confidence that I know that I'm going to be able to play my turn out. Or you know, end your turn or take an off turn after Red in the Ledger. You just keep 1 card, play Chains, name Red in the Ledger, and then they can't Red in the Ledger you. So it's a little bit different than Warmongers. You know, Warmongers are still superior into Azalea. It just shuts them down in more ways than Chains does. So it's kind of like a couple extra copies, but still even under Warmongers, Azalea can still find a way to send a you know, a Dishonor for 5 at you, and that still requires blocks. Just not something that my Katsu list ever wants to do. So running Chains, just naming Red in the Ledger. As long as you don't send Red in the Ledger at me, I'll take whatever it is and get to play my turn and hopefully blow you away. Yeah, so I think that's all the spice. I guess Art of War 2 is something that the Katsu Discord is always arguing about. Is Art of War good? Is Art of War bad? I like it.
I like it too.
I see a lot of people get success with it, so I think it's good. Yeah,
I'm guessing that Art of War is what gave you the 42 damage turn, Austin.
It was a
Double Art of
double
War.
Art of War turn.
So
which is
bummed
sus.
I didn't get to see that.
Should never do a double Art of War, but sometimes you should.
Hey, I mean, if it
When
works, it works. And
Yeah.
it's one of those things too, like, everybody's saying either play it or don't play it, but you decided to play it because you like it and it worked for Austin when you played it in your deck. But yeah, it's one of those things you just play what you like, right?
The number of times I played an Art of War when I should not have, and it paid off massively. Like Hail Mary Art of War plays that won me the game was like 3 or 4 of my matchups at various ProQuests where I was like absolutely losing. I was in a position where like, okay, I'm gonna play Art of War and I have to draw exactly a Surging and a Descendant Gust Wave, or else I lose the game. And then I play Art of War and draw Surging and Descendant Gust Wave and then win. And it shouldn't have worked, but it did many times into like Katsu mirror matches or even to a crazy Dash IO that had an insane pop-off turn. But I don't know. The heart of the cards of the Art of War has been working for me, where I'm just like, when I play it, I get just what I need, and it's been super good for me. So
That's
I
great.
like it. And I don't have the other notable thing is that I do not have Razor Reflexes in my list
That is
because
interesting.
my deck list is basically just Art of War aggro mode. I do not want to draw a Razor Reflex off of Art of War, so I don't have them in the deck.
Well, there we go.
Yeah,
Like
but
another hot take.
Post ProQuest season, I have cited out the or just removed the chains and put back in some Razor Reflexes.
Yeah.
'Cause I do like having them, and at least in the sideboard for certain matchups, because I found like at least into Azalea, sometimes unread the ledger, sending like an E strike and then Razor Reflexing it is like insane value you can do unread the ledger. So
Yeah.
having those back in the list is probably a bit more consistent than chains, but it was fun to throw chains into my deck and to play it, and people that are very experienced in Flesh and Blood be like, wait, what is this card? Why are you playing this? And it was I got some fun reactions. So
That's good.
all right, that's enough out of me.
I was just the only thing I really had because you brought up all my other questions. Quick. This is a quick one. Is Dishonor the plan, or is Dishonor there when you have it?
It's there when you have it. Yeah, I mean, like you can't really guarantee that you'll ever get to land Dishonor or even play it. But it's just a threat that exists. If you're lucky enough to like go second and start with it in your first hand, and you get to block with it right away and get it in your graveyard, then yeah, you're gonna have a nice game and get the threat and Dishonor. But a lot of times you just pitch it, which is totally fine. Or sometimes you just play it as a 0 for 4. It's kind of like the Fluster Fist, because you don't always have the on hit unless you have the exact line. And I do play a lot of whelming lines. I found that was really helpful in like the full aggro matchups, like into Fies or dashes or dash IOs. Whelming, just forcing that interaction of, hey, if you let this hit, I'm gonna draw and just keep going. Was a little bit more impactful than threatening Dishonor, especially into OG Dash where Dishonor does nothing. I
Yeah.
definitely kind of prioritize the whelming Gust Wave lines a lot, so I didn't play a lot of Dishonors.
Cool. All right. And I'll make a note of this. We don't have to really talk about it too much. Reinforce the line. I like seeing that. That's a really good tech card. Gets you kind of to help you with the dominate, and love to see that.
Definitely
hate
for
that
Bravos
card.
and
I used to run it in Dash as well.
Yeah, I mean, you see
for
it pop
pistol
up
package.
sometimes. Yeah, it's like people forget it exists, and then all of a sudden, dominate comes around again, and somebody's like, "Man, what can I do with dominate? Oh, reinforce the line. Okay," and then it comes
you
back.
can't play a second card from your hand. Like, no, it's actually an instant.
Mhm.
On two.
So you could
Yeah.
have like the arsenal, and then a block, and then reinforce the line, and just they never see it coming. It's pretty nice. All right, so we're gonna move on from your list. I like the list. I'm kind of inspired to go build it now and just play on Tower Star with it because it looks fun.
It is.
Yeah.
Can confirm.
Austin too, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So now we're gonna move on to Azalea. This one is interesting because it's Azalea. I can't get over it. I can't get over the fact I feel like I'm living in like the Twilight Zone. I never thought I'd see Azalea be this good, this quick. So this is the list. Arthur, run me through it.
Alrighty. Well, those of you that are familiar with the Azalea deck building theory, this list should look familiar. It's the Levi Rauch / Justin Chu list. Levi Rauch being a household name in the Azalea community, like led the way for deck building for years at this point. And Justin Chu made a few adjustments to like Levi Rauch's modern list, which Justin Chu took to win the calling in Taipei. And so this list is word like card for card that list as well. I did make some modifications for 2 out of the 4 ProQuests, which I'll talk about in a second once I go through the main body here. So for those of you that may not be familiar, first thing I want to point out here is that bolt and shot, very first arrow here on that page. Bolt and shot, easily MVP of the deck. Like I know everyone's obsessed with red in the ledger, right? Because everyone hates it when I hit them with a 11 dominate red in the ledger, shut off their turn. But bolt and shot really carries this deck. Um, for one thing, like it's the absolute like main thing I need to beat fatigue. Fatigue is Azalea's worst enemy, and being able to go wide with these bolt and shots with rain razors attached to them is just required, basically. Without this card, fatigue basically becomes impossible. But also just don't underestimate the extreme mental damage you do to your opponents when you shoot a bolt and shot from arsenal when you haven't activated death dealer, when you still have 3 cards left in hand because you spent 1 on a buff, and your opponent has no idea what's coming next. Maybe I'm going to shoot another arrow. Maybe there's going to be an E-strike, draw a card, E-strike 7, or everyone's new favorite card, Codex of Frailty. There's just so many options that are enabled by going wide off of these bolt and shots. So that's the first thing I want to point out here. If we scroll down a little, I have to highlight Codex of Frailty, an absolute beast of a card. It's pretty decent. So, like Brandon, you mentioned Azalea just jumping into the spotlight from your perspective. So, like this is one of the main things that's really propelled Azalea forward. Is she probably is the best assassin ranger that can really abuse this card, being able to just dump your entire hand of buffs so that you don't have to discard a card upon playing the Codex is just absolutely amazing. Plus the nice little trick where if you have a yellow or blue in hand, you can just pitch that card to Death Dealer, choosing not to load an arrow, but still floating the resources from that yellow or blue, allowing you to play a red in the ledger or Remorseless from grave after playing Codex of Frailty. So this card just enables so many things, lets you go wide, lets you play off of a 1-card hand, off of a Tunic resource, something like that, or just red in the ledger someone 6 times in a row. That's always fun too.
That
Everyone's
is
favorite thing.
I think I just gave everybody the collective.
It's miserable. It's horrible. Stop doing it. Ban
Yes,
Codex.
As the
It's
Katsu
OP.
player, bias.
I would like to
those
pause
frailty
you.
tokens.
If it's okay, I'd like to pause you on this Codex thing, right?
Sure.
The Levia player in me, the one that's like, okay, I'm gonna play this deck even though I know it's not great. Azalea used to be that actually. So I always think about like, well, what if it was this card, right? Have you seen any lists in your searching and your testing that ran the other codexes? I'm always curious about this and feel like you might be the right person to ask. Do you ever see those come up?
Yeah, there's always some discussion about the other codexes. Like Codex of Inertia has seen play in the other Azalea build with running Sandscour Greatbow and New Horizon. That's an entirely different, crazy, wacky thing that I haven't had the chance to run. It's something that kind of has died out now that Dromai is super strong, and Warmongers also really shut that deck down, unfortunately. So it was a thing for a while during the RTN season, but Codex of Inertia did work out there. Unfortunately, in this kind of Azalea build running Death Dealer and Skullbone Crosswrap, Codex of Inertia isn't that great because you just take the top card from your deck and just set it into your arsenal. And with only 1 arsenal slot, that card might not be so great, especially if you're doing it blindly. So that card just isn't consistent enough, even if giving your opponent an inertia token is really good. And Codex of Bloodrot, that's the one that lets you essentially reload a card from hand, which can be okay. Like for a while, we did run Take Aim, which was a +3 buff and lets you reload. So Codex of Bloodrot kind of does that as well, but without the buff, means that you don't get to shoot a bolt and shot go again for free, which is usually what you would want out of a reload. So the other codexes are okay and they have their uses, but I mean, Codex of Frailty is just blows them out of the water for this kind of deck.
They don't quite give you 6 red in the ledgers in a row, huh?
No, can't really beat that, unfortunately.
Awesome. Well, keep going. I didn't mean to, cut you off too long there. I was just curious and I wanted to not forget that one. So go ahead.
Oh, sure. So one last thing I'll mention here before we look at the sideboard is that searing shot right in the middle. So up above, I had 2 drill shots and 1 searing shot being the other 3 zero-cost arrows. So drill shot, amazing arrow here. Even when Oldhim is gone, still being able to force an opponent to give up armor early is really nice. And there's this 2-to-1 split with that 1 searing shot, just because in the late game, drill shot might not do all that much once everyone's armor is depleted. So instead, searing shot with that extra +1 damage on hit is just slightly better than drill shot for an endgame. So typically, I would try to block with the searing shot early on, or try to shoot it if it ends up being my only option. But I want it to get it into grave as early as possible, just so I can play Codex of Frailty without a tunic resource, without any resource floating, shoot them with the searing shot to maximize damage off of 0 resources.
That's scary.
Yep, very nice stuff. And we'll go down to sideboard here. So you'll notice I do run a little bit of a more mid-rangey plan with the 2 Sink Belows, 3 Tar Pit Traps, 3 Sigil of Solace. So I just kind of generally like that mid-range style, running defense reactions. I don't run the defense reactions into everyone, but the Tar Pit Trap there, that's probably the highlight of the sideboard options, because this card was very good into Lexi, being able to shut off that first on-hit effect when she's sending a Remorseless and I have this card in hand. Being able to shut that off is always very nice. Plus, it is incredibly funny into Katsu. Sorry, Adam, because if you play this card, say if Adam hits me with a surging strike for 5 damage, and I block it with a Tar Pit Trap so that 2 damage flows over, this does trigger Katsu's hero ability, and it prevents it from triggering, like for the entire turn. So he completely loses his Katsu effect, which is incredibly strong. It's like a better version of Sleep Dart, because now I'm getting rid of his hero ability on his turn. So he has no idea when I might Tar Pit Trap and completely ruin whatever plan that he had. So this was a newer addition in the Azalea Discord. I had this in slightly earlier just because I thought it was funny into Katsu, and it turned out to be very good into Lexi as well.
Yeah.
And so these sigils, I've debated cutting these sigils out like all throughout the ProQuest season, but I decided to leave them in because there actually were a good number of azaleas throughout the other like other azaleas throughout all the other game stores that we went to. And Sigil of Solace is very good in the Azalea Mirror. So I should say the Azalea Mirror absolutely sucks. It's no fun for either of the Azaleas. It's basically whoever wins the die roll and gets to go first, they have a huge advantage. Or sorry, whoever wins the die roll and gets to go second has a huge advantage. Or just whoever gets their first dominated red in the ledger just has a big advantage. So being able to sigil, get your health up, because of course Azalea is never going to block a 14 dominate, so might as well just heal up when you can, get full value of a card during red in the ledger turns. So this is just very good for the Azalea Mirror. Maybe one last thing I'll point out here is the 2 Battering Bolt, 2 CNC. Those are the 4 poppers that I'm running in the deck, of course, all for Dromai. CNC is the big one because there are lots of different choices of poppers here. CNC was like a big choice that came up when Warmongers was released, because Warmongers just completely destroys Azalea. Like if I have a buff in Arsenal and I basically have to pick War, that means I can't activate Azalea ability, can't load an arrow, and instead my turn is bricked because I decided to Arsenal a buff. So having more attacks like CNC that I can just play from hand really helps out. It gives me a much better chance of doing something during a Warmonger's turn. Plus CNC is just an amazing card all around. And the thing I promised I was going to mention, so for the second and third ProQuests, I did try switching 1 Sleep Dart for 1 yellow Memorial Ground, just because I knew there were so many Azaleas and Katsus even running around. So I thought having 1 Memorial Ground would help out, allowing me to red in the ledger dominate 1 additional time. And while it did kind of work out, like I mean, I did win one of those 2 ProQuests, I did feel like having like I missed that extra block. Like Memorial Ground is an instant, it doesn't have a block value. So being able to not block on some key turns just did feel a little bit painful. So for the fourth and last ProQuest, I did just switch right back to this list, going back to 2 Sleep Darts instead.
Awesome. Yeah, Memorial Ground's one of those kind of like remembrances for a lot of decks where it's like you might run one, you might not, depending on what you're doing in the meta and everything. One more
Is
question.
it okay
for you.
if I ask a question and it's proper decision?
Oh, go for it, man.
How come no down and dirties?
Ooh, good question.
That's something I used to run. Like I ran that when, like during RTN season when Azuris were still pretty popular. So if Azuri plays a Codex of Frailty, I can just get it down and dirty, and just to preserve some health when they inevitably play like a Leave No Witnesses or Death Touch from their Codex. Down and dirty is definitely good. Like it really helps into Dromai. It makes me far less scared about emptying my hand and arsenaling whatever I get off of a ponder token. Because typically, if I play Codex of Frailty and my ponder token is a popper, now I have to think, all right, do I still arsenal this, or do I telegraph that I'm holding a popper by not arsenaling it to, the Dromai? So down and dirty solves that problem because now you can just pop something from Arsenal and the Dromais are almost never going to expect it. It's like it's definitely a good choice. I just really like having CNC to be like anti-warmongers tech is what I'm more worried about.
That's definitely a lot of really good discussion. High level discussion too, because you're specifically like hearing from a Dromai, hey, there's this scary card that just blocks from Arsenal. Why don't you run it? And then from the Azalea, hey, well, I like this better, but maybe it's not wrong to run that. And I'm actually considering now that I might put this in a list or two just to have the extra tech against Codex. I never thought of that. It's pretty cool. And so now I have one question, and this is a personal one. I might be dumb for asking this. I don't know. Perch grapplers. In my experience, and I've been playing more Riptide. I haven't really played Azalea. Never really played Lexi. Perch grapplers always seems more expensive. So, and I noticed that you run Snapdragons in the main list. So what's the? Wait a minute. I just noticed something. Oh, okay. You still got the belief. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah, what's your plan for perch grapplers? What's the move there? Just the block?
All right. So yeah, it's just for the block because as you said, Perch Grapplers is way too expensive. Like if you look through the list, I'm running 9 blues. So with 9 blues, there's almost no way I'm going to be able to pay Perch Grapplers. Plus, I'm Azalea, so typically I'm shooting 1 arrow anyway. So this is purely just for the block. Maybe one in some obscene number of games, I'll be able to actually use this for full value. Typically, if I just it's very rare, but sometimes I'll have like a Remorseless or something in Arsenal already with an absolute perfect hand that can somehow pay for Perch Grapplers and shoot 3 arrows or something. But 99% of the time, this is just for the block. Most times I do run snaps. I do like running Perch Grapplers into like the Azalea Mirror, which that one is a hot take. So a lot of people do like snaps in the Azalea Mirror, but I run Perch just to dissuade the other Azalea from doing 5 dominate red in the ledger, because that can come up pretty often where they just have an opportunity to red in the ledger, but with no buffs. And if I didn't run Perch Grapplers, I would have to consider blocking all of my armor or just completely breaking my turn, letting them have tempo. So it's just a little deterrence. Plus, it's pretty good into Katsu, just so I can help with the blocking value, because I do like to run even the Sink Belows into the Katsu matchup. So just bulking up on armor, as well as into Bravo. So being able to stop one key crush effect when I know I can, turn the tide and take back tempo at a key moment. So
For
not,
sure.
most of the time I'm running snaps, but just into those, say like 3 matchups, maybe into Dory, I'd consider running snaps. But for that, I also do like to run Perch Grapplers.
Yeah, I mean, just basically when you're afraid of a block, like you need to make sure you have one block. Like you alluded earlier to the fact that you needed to, as the Azalea mirror match, you need to get the red and ledger off first to get that advantage. And if you cut them off of their first one, chances are your next one's coming before their second one, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, exactly.
that's like how you win the mirror match. That's kind of cool. I know after Lexi left, you might have talked about replacing braces of belief. Did that end up happening, or?
Oh yes, so that's how you know this is an old list, because Bracers of Belief is still in here.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually so cut and dry, because I mean, at first I thought it was, right? When we learned that Bullseye Bracers was banned, it was like, well, this is all doom and gloom. Azalea's dead. Like, what in the world are we gonna run now, right? But it turns out that Bracers of Belief is actually kind of amazing. Like, it enables new play lines that Bullseye Bracers didn't. Like, if I have a bolt and shot in Arsenal, I don't have to waste a buff on the bolt and shot to give it go again. I can instead use Bracers of Belief to give it go again, holding back a buff to do a Red in the Ledger with +1 buff on it. So, or something that has definitely won me games is being able to do knock the death whistle play with no buffs for 7 dominate instead of 5, or counting their armor, the extra 2 guaranteed I get from Bracers of Belief, letting me just go through their armor and defense reactions and guaranteeing that I get an on hit effect. So this has won me games during the ProQuest season, but I do think Bullseye Bracers is just slightly better, because it does open up other play lines, like being able to shoot an extra arrow after Death Dealer has been activated, or actually, in my opinion, a huge like the deal breaker between Bracers of Belief and Bullseye Bracers is that Bracers of Belief doesn't have Arcane Barrier, whereas Bullseye Bracers does. So you can see the sad little null rune gloves also in the
Sad.
in the thing here, purely for Kano and Icelander. But Bullseye Bracers having the Arcane Barrier means I get +1 sideboard slot and can just throw the null rune gloves into the garbage.
There we go. And then that frees up for another searing shot or something. Cool.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for the run through. A Crow's Nest is kind of, just take that. I love that card.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thanks for the run through. So now we have Austin, and Austin has been on Dromai. So tell
Have
us
been.
about Dromai, because I think I stopped playing right as people started discovering Crown of Dominion. So I got to play a little bit with it, but I didn't get past it much. So this is interesting to me.
Yes.
So tell me about this list. Tell me some of the key stuff you got. Let's hear it.
So there's a couple different versions of Dromai. For a while, one of the first renditions of Dromai was Toma Fendel. So Mage Masters the Toma Fendel, to get health and extra cards, so you can. So that's kind of like your pre-Tome of Imperial Flame, because then you drew extra cards, you got health back, and then if you played it from Arsenal, and then you can play a bunch of dragons out that way. Then there's a little bit Crown of Dominion just for the gold aspect, before Tome of Imperial Flame, just because it was a guaranteed pitch 2 cards, get to Ash, draw a card, do something on your turn. You're not quite restricted to it. And then the list changed a little bit when Outsiders came out, actually, surprisingly. What you'll see on the top is Seekersmiths. And that is purely because many opponents will, if they go first, they'll just be like Arsenal pass and set up for a big turn. So this being an instant, you are able to just be like, no, actually, I want to pay 1. I want to pitch a red card, get a Ash, so that way, and opt 1. So then you get to see, do I want my next card, which is kind of a side benefit. But just a way to guarantee so that you can't just brick on your turn. So just having a method to actually be able to do something on your turn, which is also what the gold does as well. So kind of when I'm playing, if I'm running Crown of Dominion, I'll rather go with Wave of Reality, just a little extra armor block, just patch things up, because I have the gold, so I don't need to have Seekersmith to get that Ash generation off the start. So I'll go with the extra 2 armor value that I don't have to pay for. But if I'm going Crown of Providence, then I will run Seekersmiths, because I want that guaranteed way to be able to do a Ash generation, to be able to do something on my turn.
That's when you bring the Crown of Providence, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the two cards combo. Like if I bring Dominion, then I'm bringing Wave. If I bring Providence, then I'm bringing Seekers.
Cool.
So that way I always have a way to be able to create Ash at the start of my turn. I mean, sometimes you'll find a Sweeping Blow or a Billowing Mirage or something else, and it's like, okay, well, I get my Ash generation that way, but just to have a guaranteed way is super huge and just allows you to just like go off the start. I've had a time in Blitz where I drew 4 dragons and just couldn't do anything on my turn because I think I was on Crown of Providence and Wave of Reality then. So just being able to just have like some gas to be able to start with is super nice and just overall helps the deck a lot. Especially on like if you're going against like Fire, Katsu, or some other aggro deck, you can't afford an off turn because you can't play any dragons. You need to be able to go.
Just looking at the list here, you have 2 blues. That is crazy. That is evolved. Well, you have the 3 passings in the side.
I have the 3 passings. Passings. I mean, passings come in against Icelander, and any big pauper deck. So Brute, Guardian, generally that. The 2 blues, I used to run a all red line Dromai deck. And so that was very tight on Ash generation. I didn't run any blues, but with that, I didn't run Dominion, or Tobotai. That came in later when Tome of Imperial Flame came out. And at first, I actually didn't understand Tome of Imperial Flame. I was like, it seems kind of meh. But as soon as like a friend of ours like broke it down and explained to me, I was like, oh no, this is actually crazy. And so my deck is kind of based off the Calling Dallas for winning first place Dromai deck. I did make some changes. I think he had an Oasis in there that I switched for a Sand Cover. I think he only had 1 Mirage Metamorph. I liked having 2, just because it's 2 cards 7, and it doesn't happen very often. But if it gets popped while you have it burn them all, like it actually makes people not pop it because they don't want the 2 burn them all.
Yeah.
On the field.
That is scary. Oh, 5 burn them alls. The idea of that is just scary. It's like the 6 red no letters. Having recursion for some of these effects is so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. What did I have? Let's see. Sorry, keep going. I'm just thinking to myself.
No. So some tweaks in like dragons and stuff. So there's a lot less attack actions because of the red line. Like there's no Phoenix Flame and Flame Call Awakening, which was allowed me to do Ash generation that way. We just got more dragons, and the problem with Dromai is you always want like 3 more cards in your deck, and you just that's why you'll see like two ofs of different things, and that's just because you have to nickel and dime it.
Yeah, I do remember doing that quite a bit whenever I was messing with these lists. The Dromai is very hard to solve. The list isn't so tight, right? Like there's a lot you can do and a lot of things that work, but it's just
there is.
No.
I mean, I've got Thaws in here. I've seen people have Cadavers Contraband, which I switch out the Thaws now. The Thaws were primarily for Lexi, actually, not for Icelander. And the reason being is that you can use that because oftentimes Lexi will flip a card, an ice card, and give you a Frostbite. So at the beginning of your turn, you can just be like, all right, I'll banish Thaw, get rid of the Frostbite, and now I can do my whole turn. I can swing all my dragons. I can do whatever I want on my turn. And then also, I guess it's a popper for Dromai.
Yeah. So like it's got that benefit. I like the Cadaverous though. That's like because that came out in Arc, I think, and it was one of those sneaky ones that came out. That one lets you recur dragons, right?
Non-attack action cards. So right. Any dragons, Rake in the Embers, you can Tome of Imperial Flame. You can get that back, put it on top of your deck. See you next turn.
That's awesome.
Very good.
Yeah. So anything else? I got questions. If you're good, I'll go ahead and start asking.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine.
Took off on you.
No, you're good. I just wanted to wait until you were done giving your presentation, and then I got questions. Like for me, I look at this and I go, when I was building this, I was using Phoenix Flames, and you were talking about Flame Call Awakening a second ago. Did you test that, or like what dissuaded you from doing that? Because when you choose to not do it, you're kind of like, okay, well, I think this is better. So what
I did for a little bit, especially with the new tomes. because I think I had only like one Uvia, one Necria, like cutting on some of those. I don't think I had Fate Foreseens in. So I was cutting cards out that way to make it work, and it just didn't feel as good.
Yeah.
And also it's not needed anymore with Tome of Imperial Flame.
Yeah. And I've only played Tome of Imperial Flame like one time, and it was your deck on a Blitz night when I didn't bring my deck.
Yeah.
And you were kind enough to let me borrow it, and then you had to explain how to use Tome to get Tomotai out.
The little combo, yeah, to get Tome.
Yeah, that's cool. I just, I was curious because that was where my head was at when I stopped playing Dromai. I was like, oh man, this Phoenix Flame thing is kind of cool, and that was before Tome. So now Tome happens. Like, what's the point? And
Yeah.
I did like the thing you said though, and that's important for people to take away, especially newer players, is when you start slotting things out that you need for things that you want, sometimes that can be a problem. Because like when Adam was talking about Katsu earlier with the Art of War, he's not necessarily taking up a slot for something else that he absolutely needs. There's a bit of a flex slot there. But when you're looking at Dromai, you're looking at these defense reactions, you kind of need those, and that's like not really a flex slot. So I think that was my only real question here. I like the list a whole lot. I like the little 2 of attack actions because that's an important choice, like we were just talking about. I like the snatches because I'm telling you, playing against Dromai right now, I'm still like, in Talishar games, not expecting to snatch into Snapdragons.
Right?
Right?
My favorite 2-card hand is Chromai Snatch.
Yeah, I can see that because you play out the Chromai. That's so cool. And I guess I did have a question. The dust from the Crone Caverns. What's your experience been with these cards?
So they're super nice into the popper matchups, especially with Bravo. Just being able to, because it acts as an ash, so you don't have to use your other ash that you're generating on the side for your other dragons, and just as a presence of another way for a dragon to not have Phantasm, and especially one that can let you go wide in a popper matchup, is super useful.
And I guess it's also true that this is not just the first dragon. So you can say, oh, well now Chromai is my safe second dragon swing. And it doesn't matter because it's not just your first one, like with Passing Mirage and Mirror Guy. So you get 2.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that about covers the deck list. Before we move on, anybody have anything else about the deck list or anything? No? You good?
I don't believe so.
Got nothing.
All right. I was just about to ask if you were going to unmute Adam. I was like, I don't know if he knows he's muted.
I'm still a little bit sick, so I'm muting myself so you don't hear me cough and sneeze.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I was hoping you knew. I was like, I don't know if he knows. So that's all we really got for these deck lists. I want to just go ahead and ask you guys as a team now, and any of you feel free to just chime in here. What are your future plans looking like? Because I know we have the PTI you guys are planning on going to. Pro Tour. PTI is the invite. Yeah, okay. So you guys have your PTIs and you're going to the Pro Tour. So what's the other plans? What else you got going on?
I think right now, after the ProQuests, we're kind of like relaxing a little bit, playing different decks, just having fun, trying something else, because we spent so much time and focus on those. We're just like kind of like de-stressing a little bit right now, just playing different things, having fun with it. But definitely one of our biggest focus, especially for Arthur, Adam, because they're the ones that have PTIs, is getting in draft practice with the new set coming up.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know about that. Thought you guys all had a PTIs. My bad. But
I was close.
Hey, it's good though. Way closer than me. That's for sure. And I'm still planning on going. I love these events. I've never been close to having a PTI unless I dished out the cash and on the Facebook marketplace or whatever. But like, I love going to those events anyway for the callings. But that's cool. Adam, Arthur, anything else on y'all's future plans here? Kind of just relaxing, playing a new deck every week, Arthur.
Yeah, playing hero other than Azalea for twice
Arthur
in my
hasn't
life.
played Azalea since ProQuest. He's actually stopped playing Azalea since ProQuest.
I know.
Yeah.
And it's been
I think
so
before
great.
That, there was no way to get him off of it, except for maybe like once for Commoner Night, and there's like nice right back to it.
Oh, and now our armory is like Katsu can win so easily because there isn't an Azalea there. Which
And
is
you haven't been
great.
playing your Katsu
I
either.
know, and I'm not
so-
even playing Katsu. I'm not even taking advantage of the free armory wins. I'm
No,
playing
those
Dash
are
IO
for
and doing
Austin.
horrible.
Okay,
but
so
yeah,
what beats
I think
Katsu?
right now
Let
for all
me
of us.
bring that.
Yeah, Katsu.
Yeah, now's your
Without
chance.
without Azalea or at our local meta, if there's no Azalea, Katsu can just win pretty consistently. Every
Cool.
time Arthur wasn't at an armory, Katsu would win.
It's awesome.
And Arthur shows up, I'm like, great, now I'm gonna lose to Arthur again.
Oh, the on
Now's your
it's
chance.
Unless I get
Round
lucky.
one, Arthur
You know,
drops.
me and Arthur actually have an interesting history of Azalea and Takatsu where we actually go back and forth on win streaks, which is weird. But I feel like I hate Arthur's Azalea deck list so much. It's just so miserable to play against. But then every now and again I'll just go on a streak where I win like 3 times in a row against him. Like, oh, that's cool. It doesn't feel
That's actually
possible.
fun.
It
Yeah,
happens.
because we just like come up with new tech to put in our list, or we just start playing differently. Like Adam went on a streak when he took out his D reacts and just went full aggro into me. Then I had a time where I think Tarpit Trap, that was the most recent big thing where Tarpit Trap just kind of destroys Katsu. And so I think I'm currently on the win streak.
Yep.
And
You got the Tarpit. Well,
you're
then I
gonna find
added back in
something
the
next.
chains to try
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
drag
you
back my win
should.
streak.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that was the big change. Yeah, for Katsu was
Oh yeah.
just not playing D reacts into Azalea. All of a sudden, I started winning. Like, oh, this actually works.
when I just don't care and just swing away. It's like when you play more like Fi, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is how I play Katsu. Kind of like Fi, just as aggro as possible. Katsu is an amazing mid-range hero because of Flick Flax and Turtle Katsu was a thing, right? And that's where he actually got most of his LL points, I believe. But when you play him super aggro, he can out aggro Fi, out aggro Dash IO, out aggro all these amazing super heavy aggro decks. And in my opinion, he is the fastest aggro deck when you play him like I do, at least.
Yeah, I
You
think
don't
there's
play him
something
like
to
Katsu.
that.
You
Yeah.
play him like stupid aggro, all gas Katsu, but it works because double bonds line, like a double bonds line under an Art of War is just you win. That's it.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah, and you got the excuse me, the specific stuff with Katsu that you don't have with Fi. Like Fi, you have a hand, you're gonna throw the hand, some Phoenix Flames, you're just throwing everything. But then with Katsu, you're like, okay, well, I specifically want to throw this and then this, and you're very meticulous, or you can be. So
Yeah, you do have to be
Yeah.
like tricky and stuff, but like you can go so card positive on Katsu. So under an Art of War turn, you can draw off Mask, you can draw off Whelming, and then Bonds is +1 card, and if you do a double Bonds, that's +2 cards. So you have like +4 cards on a turn sometimes. Of course, after playing Art of Wars, you just get these insane wide lines that just go right off the mat and win you the game.
like when Austin does 42 damage.
Yeah, when Austin does 42 damage with my deck, but I don't think I've even done. I don't think I've done 42 damage with the Katsu yet.
Hey, now there's a record. Now you have to keep
Yeah.
playing Katsu, right?
Yep. I'm going to keep playing Katsu. Just taking a little break. Taking a little mind break.
Yeah, I mean you need
So, yeah,
you need to.
I do, and yeah, so we have a skirmish season coming up. And Blitzes, I'm horrible at Blitz. And mainly probably because I like Katsu, and Katsu and Blitz is not great. I do play a weird Katsu list, but I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to play in Blitz. I've been working on a weird Mask of Many Faces Katsu list, which sometimes goes off, sometimes doesn't. Or I might try to play Dash IO in Blitz. That could be kind of fun. But yeah, that's my current plan. Short term is figure out Blitz deck for skirmish season, and then yeah, we at least Arthur and myself intend to go to the Pro Tour. We got the invite, so it's locked in. We're trying to talk Austin into going. Fortunately, he did not
Just
get the invite. He got. What was that?
the calling or
Yeah, go to the
side
calling.
events that
Just
are
be
going
there if you can. But being a
I,
broke
it's
college
as close
student.
as it's gonna get.
Yeah. Why we got plenty of other chances to get in. Our team is very new. It was
Yeah,
And
very
this is
new. And
my first ProQuest season,
Yeah.
Arthur's first ProQuest season. No one expected for Arthur to take home 2 ProQuests, me to take home a ProQuest, and all of us to get top 8 and top 4s consistently at ProQuest was incredible.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm glad we got to capture this because it shows that even when you have people of the same caliber, sometimes luck is different and there's a bit of a variance there. So just the way it works out sometimes. But I'll
Drawing
be
2 blues off your tome in a deck where you have
Oh
3
no!
blues.
Don't remind
Ow.
me.
Don't bring that
Don't
up.
remind me.
That's
Too
the game.
soon.
Forget,
That was
or
that
forget
was the
my Crown
game.
of Providence.
That
or,
is what happened.
Yeah.
Because he drew 2 blues off a tome, he did not get his
Into
PTI.
a Icelander, so no, that's 4 damage.
And
I
I'm
lose,
strong.
and
I'm just glad that
like
was why.
in not to mention the damage I can threaten on that turn because he had a channel lake up. So that was 2 resources for me as well.
Yeah, that's
But I mean,
that's just
it's
bad
part of
luck.
the game. It happens.
It
He was
is,
a very
yeah.
good opponent. He plays super well. Super glad that he won that match. I mean, he just played super well as well. So
Yeah. And I'm just glad that it happened the way it did, because it wasn't because I didn't bring you the Crown of Providence that day. It was something completely
Oh,
separate,
no.
so I had to take no blame for that one at all.
I took it out to play Blitz that way, guys. It's like, yeah, everything's here. Threw it in the backpack and didn't think about it.
Yeah, it's rough. But that you take the bad beats sometimes. It just happens. But I think
Fruit jokes.
I think we've kind of covered everything here. I'm gonna open it. If you guys have anything else you want to add to any of this before I close out, I want to give you guys the opportunity. And actually, this is a good point to bring this up. Shout outs. If anybody wants to do shout outs, feel free to. You don't have to.
I'm
Just dead on the spot.
just going to shout out you. Thank you for bringing us onto your
Yeah.
channel and having this interview for us. And just we get to talk about our decks and talk about the game. And that's what we love to do.
Well, thanks for coming. Glad to have you guys here. Yeah. Anybody else shout outs before I move on? 'Cause once I
I'll
move
also
on, we're
shout out
done.
Brandon.
Okay.
Still are awesome defender.
All right.
Well, now there's peer pressure. I guess I gotta shout out Brandon too.
Oh, hey, another one. All right. Cool. Well,
3 shout outs
thanks,
for
guys.
Brandon.
Yeah, 3 of them.
I mean, do we shout out our local scene? You know, everyone. We
Yeah,
meet
I
at
wanted to say that too.
Kraken trading cards. You know, go
yeah.
there in Corvallis.
Oh yeah,
That's
it's a
Great
great store.
people.
Uh-huh.
Awesome people working the store. We have a great judge community. We also have just a great local scene. Many great players, many new players, and I'm just excited to have them all there.
Oh yeah, the local scene here is something I was very excited about, actually. Having met, there's 2 judges that go here. I'm not naming people, but there's 2 judges that I'd met at other events. I want to say I ran into one of them at Jersey and the other at San Jose, and just kind of knew in my head that they were from this same store. And I was like, oh, cool, this store over there in that area. And then I found out as I was planning on moving up here, because my wife has family up here and stuff, like, I was like, oh, you know what? Like, I bet that store is probably in my area. And it's like an hour and some change away. But then I realized that it's right next to the school I'm going to be going to. So how convenient that, like, I get out of my math class on Friday and just hop over and play some Flesh and Blood, you know? So it's convenient, but it's also like I met some people that I was like, oh, they're pretty cool people. Like, I bet they have good, local metas and stuff, and kind of talked to them a little bit, and got lucky enough to run into it. And then I've got a mouse pad that's made by Inked Gaming, which I had no idea was connected to Kraken until like the other day. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's the store from Inked Gaming. It's crazy. So it's kind of a cool small world thing there, where like my wife ordered me this picture on a mouse pad like a couple of years ago from Inked Gaming. So it's just
that's
cool.
funny.
Yeah, it's like cool small world stuff, right? So
yeah,
great community. And I also I personally like to shout out, well, one for you guys coming on. I already thanked you guys. I'm going to thank you again, and I'll probably thank you next time I see you too, because it's fantastic to have you guys here. And I also, the other shops, such as like Gongai Games, like I went to play there once for the ProQuests, for one of the ProQuests we were at, and it was great community as well. So I think we have a really good, like, I'd say like 2-hour radius of Portland is kind of like our larger meta. Just, the whole community is great out here. So if you're in the area and you're watching this and you're like, hey, I want to go check out my local meta for this area, we got some great stores. There's plenty of other great stores out there. The Fab community in general is very welcoming of new players, as you guys can probably attest to, being that our store is a very new player friendly, like has commoner decks ready to lock and load for people just showing up on the commoner night. Yeah, so go to your stores, like meet people. It's cool now, you get to go out and see people. I'll stop rambling now. I guess I'll go ahead and close out. I kind of already talked about the future plans for the channel. You guys just try to stay tuned. We're going to do some stuff here and there. I'm sure Wes and I will be talking about worlds and the latest kind of Flesh and Blood stuff that's happened before we go into the holiday season. You might not hear back from us till after that, but when you do, I think we might have some news for you. Hopefully our new stuff should be kind of like a little more solidified by then. In the meantime, it was great having you guys on, and it's great having you guys watching out there. And I think that's going to be it.